Lots to get to for Madden Benz Unfiltered today. The NFL draft is done. Steelers had a pretty good haul, I thought. Game 7s in the NHL last night. Things did not go well for Boston and Colorado. Lots to talk about as well for the offseason for the Penguins, and the Pirates have a big series coming up. But first and foremost, Mark, Aerosmith and the Black Crowes, the 6th of September. It's just been announced. It's the Wednesday after Labor Day. Do you have tickets already?
Well, they're not on sale just yet, Tim, but I got a plot as soon as we're done here. What shows I'm going to on what's said to be their farewell tour. And, when the tickets go on sale. So let's get this over with.
Yeah, I'm with you there, because we've talked enough about the draft. That's for sure. We've talked about it plenty going in. You and I talked about it on the podcast today. And it's unfortunate because in our line of work, when there's not a lot of controversy, sometimes topics tend to die, and universally people seem to like the Steelers draft. I'm among them. How about you?
Well, I like the draft, but one thing they need to look at is where it has them, what it's done for them. I think they still are weak at inside backer and center. I don't think they're a team that's going to win the AFC North anytime soon, unless Joe Burrow gets hurt or falters drastically. And, the latter probably ain't going to happen. I don't see them as a team capable of winning a playoff game this year, certainly, because that would mean beating one of the AFC's elite quarterbacks in the wild card round. So I just think it's a great draft, and it was very clinical and filled need after need. But where's it go from here? And the answer is that all relies on Kenny Pickett.
The biggest talking point from this point forward, and frankly could have and should have been throughout the offseason, is how much do they expand the playbook and how much can Kenny Pickett handle? They have done a good job, I think, taking away the potential excuses for it to be anything else than about how good is the offense orchestrated and how well can Kenny Pickett conduct it.
Well, yeah, it's on Kenny Pickett. Okay, Tim, do you know who the Bengals offensive coordinator is? Can you name him?
No, not right now.
Okay, that's the point. You know why? They have Joe Burrow. Okay, nobody talks about him because they have Joe Burrow. Because it doesn't matter who it is, because they have Joe Burrow. Okay, Kenny Pickett got to succeed, and it doesn't matter who the OC is. It doesn't matter. It's on him now. He needs to put his big boy pants on. I think he might have been wearing them when he was chugging a beer on stage with Luke Combs the other night, which, by the way, I think is harmless fun. But now it's all on him. And that's not how the fans will see it, because whenever he succeeds, it's all his doing. Whenever he fails, it's somebody else's fault. The stats only matter when they're good. But now it's all on him, because the gap to be closed needs to be closed by Kenny Pickett.
As far as the wide receivers go, I know some people wanted to see them get another wide receiver. This is the first draft since 85 where they didn't go quarterback, wide receiver, or running back. By the way, that 85 draft, when they didn't do that was a 12-round draft, and they still didn't do it. But as far as the pass catchers go, I think that was signaled when they got Allen Robinson in that trade right before the draft, that they didn't think much.
How good are they supposed to be? I mean, they have a big play guy in Pickens. They have a 100-catch guy a couple of years back in Deontay. They have a great slot guy in Allen Robinson. Now they have not one but two tight ends. They got bookends, one who catches, one who blocks. What else are they supposed to get for Pickett to work with? I mean, stop with the excuses. It's time for Pinocchio to become a real boy and be the quarterback they need him to be. And I don't expect that overnight, but it has to happen. It's on him.
Did you see the tight end pick as a luxury pick, or are you okay? You did?
I am okay with it, but it is a luxury pick. I mean, they didn't fill a need there, but I think that guy's going to help.
I was sort of expecting them to go inside linebacker, outside linebacker, or vice versa in rounds 3 and 4. And then when they made the trade and left that inside linebacker who went to the Ravens on the table, Trenton Simpson from Clemson, I sort of went, I'm not wild about that, but they did get the outside pass rusher in Herbig, and I am intrigued about what Washington can become. It's definitely a luxury right now because they bothered to keep Gentry. I'm not wild about the idea of Connor Hayward as a fullback, so it does feel like a luxury pick, but hey, if Pat Freiermuth continues to have concussion problems or injury problems, they need somebody who can catch, and as big as this guy is, he still can't catch.
Yeah, again, it's a luxury pick. I don't got a problem with it. They were never going to fill all their needs in one draft. This is a situation where it's not a one-year fix. It might not even be a two-year fix because at some point you have to worry about Cam Hayward retiring or not being as good anymore. But it was still in a vacuum, in and of itself, a very good draft.
We didn't talk on the podcast about the Lamar Jackson contract getting hammered out. What did you think about how that got resolved, and how did you feel both the Bengals and Ravens did in their draft?
I got to be honest, I haven't paid attention to Bengals and Ravens draft him. Don't you know that Aerosmith has a tour coming up?
I know this. Anybody who I shouldn't say anybody. Most people who graded the Steelers well also graded the Ravens and Bengals well. So keep that in mind.
We always act him like we're the only team that drafted.
Yeah. It was 7 picks for the Steelers or whatever, and nobody else got selected anywhere.
Right. Here's one thing I do know. Did you know Mel Kiper got only 1 pick right in the first round?
And did you say Peter King only got 2?
Right, but Mel Kiper got 1. He got the first pick. I mean, how can you not get the second pick?
Well, the whole thing with the Texans trading up to go 2-3 and then like the running backs going early, it screwed up everybody's mocks because
no. I mean, I'm not, I'm being mostly facetious when I rip Mel, but it is amazing that the next day he's considered the expert again. You know what I mean? He got 1 out of 32 picks correct, and the next day he's the unfettered, undefeated. Well, maybe not quite undefeated, but certainly undisputed draft king. And I find that really funny.
What about Jackson?
He settled. I mean, he didn't lose. When you get that amount of money, you're not losing, but he settled. He didn't get the $230 million he wanted, so he didn't win either. He didn't lose, but he didn't win.
Yeah,
but, I mean, they needed to do it, and he needed to do it too. I mean, neither party, the Ravens or Lamar, were going to be better off without the other.
The guy who just went to the Super Bowl and won the AFC certainly helped matters too with Hurts and how he handled his negotiation with Philadelphia.
Yeah, I mean, part of this is PR because Hurts didn't look like a selfish jackass, and he didn't have mommy represented.
All right, Mark, let's get to some hockey talk. We didn't have the opportunity to talk about these games of the podcast, so we can get some opinions out there now about the Bruins flaming out in 7 games against the Florida Panthers after setting the wins and points record in the regular season.
Well, that was the problem. They set the wins and points record. They expended energy chasing something that doesn't matter as much as the Stanley Cup, and now they'll only be remembered for losing in the first round. Just like the Penguins set that 17-game winning streak record in 93 and then went out in the second round. They're only remembered for Volek's goal. The Bruins cared too much about something that burned them out for the real pursuit.
Volek's goal, by the way, 30 years ago on May the 12th. We're coming up on the 3-decade anniversary of that disaster. And then there's the Colorado Avalanche who lose to Seattle. So, Mark, I know you made this point during the NCAA tournament. It's kind of got that feel, doesn't it? You love the upsets until the next round rolls around, and now you don't have the best team in hockey, and now you don't have the defending Cup champion either.
And they're out on the same night, too, to teams that you would have never thought would beat them. Yeah, I don't want to say it's a joke, but it does diminish the playoffs moving forward. It will certainly diminish the TV ratings in a big way moving forward, especially Boston being out because that's a major TV market. What if the Rangers go out? Because we like to pretend Newark's New York with the devil. It's not. It's not. So, and if you have Edmonton and Toronto in the final, that would be a really entertaining final, but nobody in America would watch it.
Yeah, the Canadian ratings would be great, but not here.
Well, the Canadian ratings are great anyway, Tim, because they watch no matter who's playing.
Yes, the Super Bowl
for
a full month.
Do. Pancakes, maple syrup, good beer. They watch they have sex doggy style so they can both watch the hockey game. I mean, it will hurt the NHL, but you can't control stuff like that. So, but yeah, it makes the meaningless nature of the regular season even all the more focused. I mean, although the Penguins wouldn't have beat the Bruins, I don't want to jump to that conclusion, but seriously, I mean, why do you watch the regular season if all it amounts in is absurdities like this? And this isn't like the NCAA where it's a single game. That I understand. This I'm not sure I understand.
Well, if you look, and I saw this stat retweeted a couple times last night, NBA, NHL, Major League Baseball, and the NFL, all four of the major pro sports in North America, whoever has the record for the best regular season, now none of them have a championship.
Well, there's too many layers of playoffs in each. That's why. Part of it is that they burn themselves out in a pursuit that doesn't matter as much, but it's mostly the many layers of playoffs, let luck get more involved and injuries and attrition get more involved. Now, that's not the case for the Bruins, although they were battling, injury with Bergeron and his herniated herniated disc. But they lost in the first round, too, to, a team that barely squeaked in. But the more layers of playoffs you add, the more that luck's involved. Back in the NFL before the Super Bowl era, if I'm not mistaken, there was a time when they had two divisions and the winners played each other for the NFL championship. The World Series, up until 1969, Tim, the National League winner played the American League winner, and that was the champion. Those were real champions. These aren't, they're champions. They win something that's difficult, but it's a tournament. They're winning the championship of a tournament. They're called the champion of the league, but it's a tournament. The truest champions in any sport, Tim, are the European soccer leagues. It's the truest championship. In England, for example, and all the big leagues in Europe are like this. England has 20 teams in the top flight, right? They play each other home and away, 38 games. Most points, champion. It's a true champion.
Speaking of what happened in England, how about that plane that flew over Anfield?
Yeah, there was a plane flew over Liverpool's home stadium while Liverpool were beating Spurs 4-3 with the goal in the 94th minute. It said LFC, Sox, Penguins, same problems, FSG out. Tim, I'm told Mario was the pilot.
So far, see if I got
telling that joke till I get a bigger laugh than you just gave me.
Until you find out Mario actually was the pilot and has a pilot's license. Maybe it was Burkle's guy. Maybe it was Burkle's private pilot, and he and Mario conspired.
Would have been a nicer plane.
Well, yeah, it was a small plane, and the type wasn't that great on the banner, but it got the point across. So let me see if I got this straight. Penguins under FSG, they got bounced in the first round of their first year and missed it in their second year.
I don't blame FSG for that. That's an organic fading.
Okay, but Liverpool's in fifth right now, and the Red Sox are in fourth.
Yeah, but we almost won 4 trophies last year and did win 2 of them. I think it's just a bad year after having played too many games last year in the pursuit of 4 championships. We played 67 games. That's more than any English team in history has played. Although right now, Tim, I'm herniating my own excuse. Never mind Patrice Bergeron. But the problem with FSG was when we were champions of Europe in 19 and champions of England in 20, that's when you needed to bring in really good new players, even though you had just won, because that's when those players want to join you. So that makes, like, next year without Champions League football, if we don't finish top 4, that makes, acquiring guys that much tougher. And then the Sox, I don't know. FSG wants analytics. It's apparently failing them in Boston. I think the big problem there is there's always going to be residue from having traded Mookie Betts.
You know what? It just struck me. Isn't Grant Jennings a pilot?
Yeah, but he's way near the Arctic Circle, Tim. That's a long flight. You'd have to refuel that size plane 1,000 times.
You're like driving your Toyota to England. All right, Mark, let's get to the Penguins general manager search since we're on the topic of management in hockey. Are a number of candidates already off the list, and is Kyle Dubas ever going to make it to the list?
Well, this is what I hear.
You need a list for the list.
I hear that the Darch, the Tampa Bay assistant GM or whatever his title is, doesn't want it. Feels he can do better waiting, and he can. It's like when Drury turned on the job before Hextall got it, and now he's the GM of the Rangers, a much better job. It's not an attractive job. It's too old of a roster and too many, 8 to be exact, no movement clauses. I hear Shiro's going to go to Philadelphia in some capacity. And I think if the Leafs did win around, so I think Dubas leverages that into more money and more control to stay. So I hear Mark Bergevin, the former Canadiens GM who played defense for the Penguins. He was a Mario Crony. Maybe that works against him now. But honestly, I don't know. Maybe the guy that Calgary fired. I just had this sinking feeling it's going to wind up being a guy like Tulski from Carolina, a former analytics blogger. I mean, I want analytics. I just don't want a blogger.
Mark,
and by the way, one thing about the Penguins I want to mention too, and I wrote a column about this for the Trib. What an indictment of the organization when a Hallander left, a 22-year-old prospect. I mean, he's not a top six, but he's a bottom six, and they need those more and better. And he left because he felt blocked. He went back to Sweden. Tim, he didn't jump to the WHA to play with Bobby Hull in 1972. He went to Sweden. And I know he's from Sweden, but that's an indictment of the Penguins organization. And I don't blame the kid. I mean, when big Jeff Carter's out there with his veteran respect and they keep throwing contracts at him, why would you stay here?
Yeah, and you got 2 more years of Michael Granlund blocking you, so to speak. That's a problem. What about the goaltending? Now, it's kind of funny. We talked about maybe the GMs that we're looking at not coming free or shaken loose so that they could be acquired by FSG. But the goaltending, a lot of the names we talked about as potentials, they could be out there. But do you want any of them? I just, the supply and the demand both suck. Who do you want?
I don't want Jari.
So anybody but him?
If well, here's the thing. Let's say the Korpisalo might sign with LA, although they didn't win a series, so maybe he goes to free agency. Samsonov might re-sign with Toronto now that they won a series. I think Varlamov would like to leave the Islanders because he's backing up his fellow Russian.
Sorokin,
right. And, he'd probably like to play in his declining years. He's 35.
And Halak might be out there, right?
Right. And don't forget, you're getting a goalie for the short term because you got, old guys as your key players. So I would rather have any of those guys than Jari because at least it would be somebody different disappointing me if that happens.
Last thing, Mark, the Pirates and Rays, the biggest series in all of baseball. Tampa and Pittsburgh to start off May. They both got 20 wins, best record AL, best record NL. I'm not going to call it a World Series preview, as even some are joking. I'm
calling it a World Series preview.
Just to talk yourself into it, huh? Just to give yourself.
I intend to wish it into existence.
Yeah, well, I don't think anybody in the Major League Baseball front office is going to try to wish that into existence. I don't know how that would do ratings-wise.
It might not draw the Stanley Cup Finals.
Yeah, it would be bad. But for us, it's entertaining. Now, they both really kicked the can yesterday. They dropped games to bad teams.
Well, the Pirates pitching is going to fade some. I was talking about that. Well, I have a monologue prepared about that with Oviedo, who's now, got lit up a couple straight times, which leads me into a Buck Cherry reference in my monologue. But yeah, I still think they don't have a 1-starter or a 2-starter. I think they got 3s and 4s, all of them. And those guys are going to have, at the very best case scenario, Tim, bumps in the road. Oviedo experiencing that now. But I'm also on record as saying the Pirates will finish with a winning record. They've already assembled a big enough cushion where I feel very confident saying that.
Let's go to Sean, who says Avalanche and Bruins out in the first round. Expansion teams shouldn't be set up for this much success. You're okay with that? I mean, I'm all right with.
How are you supposed to sell tickets?
Well, not only that, but I also I don't think teams mind the expansion situation as much as we make it out to be because it gives them a chance to shed salary for free.
Yeah, I mean, right. Like for every team gets to shed kind of one salary. I mean, actually, Seattle and Vegas both picked wisely in that regard too. They didn't take the high price guys. But yeah, you get rid of a guy who's not that important to your team because you're protecting X amount. It doesn't seem like a big deal because you're losing one guy, but then all those guys are assembled in one place, and what if you play them in the playoffs?
And that certainly happened with Grubauer, the goaltender for Seattle, going up against Colorado.
Yeah, I don't think he's a good goalie. I think that was kind of fluky how well he played. But I think Seattle's very similar to Vegas in their expansion year, except, again, Vegas had better goaltending with Flower.
Like Olczyk said at Bjorkstrom, he had like one of the greatest games in postseason history, or could have. He had 2 goals, and then he hit the post 3 times last night.
On that goal he scored where he buzzed around the defenseman and buried it off the post. What a goal.
Yeah, and Tanev almost got, well, he did initially get credit for the first one, but he just sort of fell around the goaltender and the puck missed him.
I think this takes the gloss off the Avalanche's win last year. It makes it seem not fluky, but like they made bad decisions in the offseason, like letting Kadri go. They should have found a way to keep Kadri. I mean, he was such a big part of them winning last year. And before you know it, Evan Rodriguez is your second-line center a lot of the season.
Sean adds Fleury 1 year like McCutcheon.
That's not going to happen.
I think people overlook.
I think actually now it's logical to happen. Trust me when I say it's just not going to happen.
Yeah, I wonder
Someday I'll say why.
I'll pontificate as to why. I think maybe there's some hard feelings on Fleury's part anyway, between himself and Sullivan for the way things went down.
You're warm.
All right. This one is from Ba, who says the NHL has set itself up for Ba Goldstein. The NHL has set itself up for a possible Seattle-Florida Stanley Cup final. Ratings wouldn't have been that bad since 2007 when the Ducks and Senators couldn't beat reruns of Mama's Family on PAX. Oh, I haven't heard a PAX TV reference in a long time.
To be fair, Tim, I don't blame the NHL. I mean, whoever wins is who wins.
Well, I think where people are going with this, the other guy mentioned it too, like the format is setting itself up for this. But
right. I disagree.
Yeah, that would have happened anyway. That would have happened under the old format anyway.
The format can always get, it can lead to the wrong place. But it's not like you build up the Cody Rhodes versus Roman Reigns at WrestleMania. These are actual games being played.
Yeah, and if you look at the old format where it was 1 through 8 in the conference, both these teams would have faced wild card teams anyway. Like the difference is in the middle. It's the 2-3 teams in the divisions that play each other. This one's from Mike. How do you rate Kenny Pickett slugging a beer at the Luke Combs concert?
I have no problem. He's having fun. I mean, I've read where people are on Twitter saying they can't believe people are upset about it. I don't see one person being upset about it. It's purely invented. I didn't see one tweet that was funny. Maybe it was ironic. Maybe it was intentionally so. Somebody tweeted, "This is great behavior from your number 1 quarterback," and it was from the Deshaun Watson fan account.
Alex says, is it a bust if they move Peasy's kid to safety in the first season? Why would they do that?
They're not gonna. So yeah. I think, bust is a strong word. I think if they move him to safety, in the next couple years, it turns out not to be the pick you hoped.
But still, if it wasn't Porter, I think a lot of people were hoping it was going to be Brian Branch anyway, and he's sort of a slot corner safety hybrid.
Yeah, but at least then you know exactly what you're getting.
This is from Eric.
Brian Branch could play slot corner because he's done it. If you move Peasy's kid to safety, that's never happened before with him.
Eric says, is Florida's win a bigger upset or equal to the Islanders over the Pens in 93?
Well, the Bruins this year had more points, but the Penguins were a record-setting team too with the 17-win streak at the end of the year. And I saw both teams playing. Those Penguins were better. Don't forget that was pre-cap. That was a juggernaut.
And some people suggesting that the Penguins could have done what the Florida Panthers did. No, they couldn't have. Florida was a better team last year than the Penguins. Florida got hot during the end. Florida had better goaltending, I think, by the end with Bobrovsky, and Florida had more depth and options of scoring.
Here's the problem with the Penguins, Tim. If the Penguins have a perfect offseason, coming up, they still probably won't make the playoffs.
Ron says, who got it now? The Stanley Cup is really up for grabs. Who do you like now, Mark? Toronto? No, they got over one hump. Are they the best team remaining?
I think the two best teams in the East are Toronto and the Rangers aren't even through the first round yet. But I think they have the potential if they beat the Devil to get somewhere. Carolina's too beat up with no Teravainen and Svechnikov. I don't think Florida can win another series. Like that, it's tough for teams to keep pulling upsets. Although somebody posted a tweet this morning about how the 91 Minnesota North Stars beat like every good team on the western side of the draw, including Edmonton, Chicago, I think, was the President's Trophy winner. And then they got to the final and Mario gutted them like a mackerel. But I think it's tough for teams to pull even more than one upset in a row. But don't forget, Florida won the President's Trophy last year and just, didn't kick it into gear until late in the year. Maybe this is their real team. I do not know. Out west, I think Dallas is going to say Seattle.
Dallas. Yeah.
Yeah. So if Dallas gets a short series against Seattle, they'll make the Stanley Cup final. You watch.
All right, Mark, last thing I wanted to throw at you, the goaltending for the Bruins. It certainly backfired the way things went at the end.
Didn't backfire. They probably should have gone to Swayman a game or two earlier because Ullmark, by some accounts, was playing hurt and not playing well. But, neither of those guys are star goalies. They just played behind a great team that was very defensive-minded and put up great stats.
All right, so you're going to get the Aerosmith tour concert list and figure out where you're stopping, where they're stopping before.
Yeah, what's weird, Tim? I've seen the dates. They don't appear to be playing any dates in Vegas. I was hoping they would, and maybe they still will. I think they'll add dates.
Will they actually play? That's what I was going to ask.
I hope so. But I can't find, right now they have dates scheduled through, I can't figure it out. To hell with it. I'm looking at it right now while I'm talking to you, but I gotta map it out for sure.
We'll be back next week for Madden Benz Unfiltered, and Mark will give you his Aerosmith concert map between now and then. Listen to Mark.
And one thing that has to be noted, Tim, and I want my boss to hear this too. I will be taking lots of days off to go to these shows, maybe more than I'm allotted. And if that means the end of my career, well, I don't know where to draw the line. Wait, is that how the lyric goes?
It's close enough.
Yeah, good enough. I'm done.
Mark's on at 3 o'clock today on 105.9 The X.